Good evening. We're calling to order the Schlotz Selectboard meeting, Monday, September 11th. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Yes, Dean.
I want to add the discussion of the notice of vacancy for the moderator for town meeting.
Okay. So we can probably do that during updates, I think, right?
Okay.
Okay. Are there public comments? Okay. Updates. The carpet?
Sure. So we have two quotes, and I'm going to be getting a third quote and asking one of the companies that gave one of the original two quotes for a comparative quote on carpet rather than on the alternate material that he quoted, which was Flotex. So we should be able to get three quotes fairly soon, probably another meeting or two to have some, to have them in front of you.
Is it a giveaway to tell us what price range we're in? Should we not do that yet? What's the budget? What's the budget for the carpets?
It was put in the reserve fund, so, I think for the purpose of budgeting, we put in about 22,000. The quotes are coming in less than that,
Okay.
which was expected.
So
So
for the carpet squares, right?
they are carpet
As
squares.
opposed to the Flotex.
Yep.
So what's your expectation? In 2 weeks,
Either 2 weeks or, it might be the first meeting in October.
does someone decide on color? Is there a committee or texture or?
I think it's basically you're comparing price at first, and then once you determine the vendor, then they have options, lots of options.
So town hall employees all weigh in on
We did the posted version. Everybody marked down the top two picks, and then we picked the two that had the most common
Okay,
across the board.
okay. So that's proceeding, then you got two quotes, you're gonna get a third.
Right.
Good. And the other item that I had was, you did as well, Ed Stone resigned as moderator.
Right.
So is there a process we go through then? You want to review that with us? Steve?
There is, you're required to post a notice of the vacancy, which I drafted. It's in the packet that I just handed out. It's the last page.
Hand it out in our
I
mailbox?
just put it on the table.
Okay.
It's-
Oh, this is the municipal policy, yep.
Or actually, the first page is vacancy, or it's the statute, Vermont Statutes Online, Title 24, Section 961, vacancy or suspension of officers' duties. You got that?
Yep,
Okay, so the last page is the actual notice. So we post the notice, and it's supposed to be posted within 10 days of the creation of the vacancy. I made somewhat arbitrary suggestion that letters of interest should be submitted by September 29th, and that the select board's intention would be to fill the vacancy by October 31st. There's no planned, the next planned meeting is town meeting in March. So as far as I know, there's no other meeting that the moderator would be presiding over. But I just figured it's better to have the appointment made sooner rather than later.
Yep, sounds good. So where do you post it?
3 places in town and the newspaper, and I'll put it on Front Porch Forum.
On the vote for moderator, was that a single vote for town and a single vote for the school? We know there's no school one anymore,
There's now no school moderator.
but was that a single position?
No, it was 2 votes.
Okay, it was 2 votes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there other updates?
Yeah, I met with the other parties in the Arthod issue, and we have a potential settlement. The short version is they agree to split the lease, we'll do a lot line adjustment, and they'll start paying rent, so the rent will, again, be paid on the entire square footage.
So
And
lot 127 becomes, and 128 become a single lease then?
the two, I'm going to get the two mixed up.
127, 128, 129.
And the two that were of one lease will remain the same, but one of the two will reduce in size. And lot,
So the 127, is it 127, 128 were a single lot before? And
Yes.
that's going to be,
that was a single lease.
that was a single lease with two lots.
So
and it'll be
128
one and a half lots.
128 is going to get smaller, so it will remain an entire lot, but it will get smaller, and lot 129 will get larger. So it will remain a single lot. So it's not a split, it's an adjustment of lot 128.
So 127 and 128 will, the
Still-
smaller 128 will become a single lease,
Yes,
and then the 129 will have added
square footage.
square footage
One-
because of the lot adjustment and remain a single lease.
And they wanted, we're going to tear down the old structure. I already talked to Junior about that. That'll probably be less than $1,000, probably less, around 700 or 800, a couple hours of his guy's time and a dumpster.
What's the timing, you think?
Well, I wanted to run this by council, make sure we did it right, and then once he's approved it, I'm assuming that,
After,
We're good
after
with that.
the
So it would
no-build
be-
time,
pardon?
after the no-build time.
Any financial,
Well, they wanted it done by September 15th, and I pointed out that we're going to block the driveways when we're tearing it down, so maybe you really want to do it,
During the no-build
After you've all
time,
left.
which is after everybody's gone.
yeah.
is there any financial compensation to the town for splitting these lots?
No, it was just a lease.
Just moving the adjustment line? Okay, and then the taxes are, or
The
the rent would be adjusted?
rent would be adjusted based on a shoreline formula that Ed Clodfelter has. Dean had given them an estimate of what it might be, and it's probably close. We'll just have Ed weigh in on it.
Yes, Mary?
It seems like you should take a little bit more time and be a little bit more thoughtful when you go down this road that you are getting around the whole splitting of leases by using a boundary adjustment. It opens up quite a few cans down there on Thompson's Point. So I know the sentence that you're reading in the zoning regulations that pertains to the boundary adjustment. You can interpret that in a variety of ways. It just seems like we just got through paying Paul Arthod for a mistake of the select board in splitting that lease. There's another one out there that was split exactly that same way, although that doesn't seem to be an issue right now. There are other camp owners who've come to the select board or emailed Dean or whatever, however they've communicated, and they want a piece of this lot, and they want to straighten that boundary, and they want to, there's a whole host of people down there that I just think you're gonna, there's the potential of creating a mess.
The way it's written, that option exists for everybody. It was interpreted by our attorney over the phone, that a lot line adjustment is an option. I'm not sure
doesn't make sense when you say on one side of, on this hand, you say there shall be no more splitting, there should be no splitting of any leases down in Thompson's Point. And on this hand, you say, but a boundary line adjustment is acceptable. Those two things to me seem like they're the exact same thing, but you're saying it in one way you're saying, no, you can't do that, and the other hand says, but if you call it a boundary line adjustment, you can do it.
Well, they're not the same thing. From a surveying and I don't know what you call it, process situation, a split ends up with another entity, and a lot line adjustment just adjusts to existing entities. If you split a lot, that means you come up with another number, another lot. In this case, it was 128, which was now an own independent parcel.
When any landowner in town wants to do a boundary adjustment, they go to the planning commission. Is the town doing the same thing?
The town is splitting its own stuff. I'm not sure.
Could we check to see if we need to? I don't know that it's been done that often, but I would think we would have the planning commission approve the boundary adjustment.
Well, yes, it could all be submitted. The goal of this was to remedy a situation under the pretense of a lawsuit. If we want to deny them the proposal that they have and tell them they have to submit, we don't know what will happen. They may decide to sue over it. Because we still do not have, as a select board, we made a mistake, and part of that mistake still exists, and we have not remedied it yet. So although Paul Arthod has left the building, so to speak, with respect to the lawsuit, it is not made whole, and the property owners probably will have the right to file whatever they want. So under the guise of a settlement, I think the select board does have the authority to do this without this submission. That was one of the questions I had for our counsel when I write this stuff up in a form that he can review.
Okay, yeah, if I guess we just check to make sure that we can skip that step with
Because
town on plan.
when you do a lot line adjustment versus a lot split, which you...
It's not a
you do-
subdivision.
Yes, you do, according to the rules, have to fill out what do they call it? Because I had to do it on the farm.
Yeah. My relatives did a boundary adjustment
And
years
it was
ago.
a separate, and it was also an Act 250 involvement, which I don't think, since Thompson's Point is a lease and not a fee simple, that Act 250 applies.
But if we could just ask to make sure that, it's a permanent solution.
Yeah, sure. And like I said, I
mean,
plan to
are you
write up there.
Considering it just like an internal adjustment, since all of Thompson's Point is owned by the town?
Well, it's
I mean, pretty much an internal adjustment per the lease.
a lease adjustment because technically they're not lots as defined by law, or else they could have separated them. A true lot is a fee simple entity when described in all of the process is something somebody owns, not something somebody rents or leases. So when you call it a lot and apply it to a lease, you can't apply all the legal terms for a true lot to, it's like you can't give yourself an easement, until you parcel a piece off. You can't put an easement through your own property to yourself.
So you're saying legally you think Thompson's Point is one property?
Yeah.
And then the town has designated lots
We call them lots, we could
to
call
pertain
them
to a lease agreement.
lease parcels or
Got it.
camp sizes or camp locations, or you could call them anything you want.
But it's not the
Which
same as
It's not the
two
same as a
separate
true lot,
properties.
which I think is probably the root to the confusion in the first place. Or part of it.
Okay, so comments are noted, and you're gonna,
I'll
Matt's comments,
write this stuff up in a form to send to David Rue to
okay?
to review, and then assuming he has no comments, it'll come back to the select board for
Okay.
action.
Any other updates? Yes.
I just wanted to point out, I'm going to be on vacation from Tuesday, the 26th through Friday, the 29th.
Of September.
Yep.
And Dean, would you put the tractor parade on an agenda before October 8th, just for the
So that'll
town
be the
sponsorship?
Next meeting.
Thank you.
I will not be at the next meeting on September 25th. You'll be here? Okay. Any other comments? How's the pumper? What's its status? Being built or?
There was I think, yes, it's been ordered, I think what they call, what do they call it? A pre-construction meeting may have not happened over this last weekend because I think Rob was, who was a participant, was called up to go to Texas for hurricane stuff. So I have not spoken to the chief since I got back from vacation, so I don't know if that meeting happened, but that's a final go-over with the manufacturer to make sure that everything is what it's supposed to be, and then they start building it.
When's delivery? Sometime middle of next year kind of thing, or?
I believe the contract date was, yeah, it was like a year from the signing of the contract, which would have been end of July, but they anticipate a 10-month turnaround.
Okay. Any other select board updates? Yes.
It doesn't have to be right now, it could be later, because I think there are some other items, but I just asked for a motion on the notice of vacancy to authorize posting that.
Why don't we just do that since we're, is there a motion to post the vacancy for the position of town moderator?
Sure, I'll make a motion to post the vacancy of moderator town of Charlotte
Second.
as presented.
Okay. You second it? Any comments about that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on. Abby, you're here. Welcome.
So, hi, I'm here as the Charlotte representative to Chittenden Solid Waste District to just provide a little reminders about the Community Cleanup Fund. And this is Jean Jensen, the Chief Operating Officer of Champlain Valley School District, who has applied for a grant to help with the CCS Quonset hut cleanup. So the purpose of the community cleanup funds are to help member towns with cleanup projects, and more recently also to help towns purchase recycling containers for public spaces. And over the past 3.5 years, the projects in Charlotte have been 2 illegal dumpings cleanup. Another one at the CCS Peace Mountain parking lot where there was old playground equipment and tires next to the wetlands there. We've also had help in Charlotte from container grants before the cleanup fund included containers for building the CCS compost shed, town compost demonstration bins that we have, and also events, waste sorting stations with signs. So those are the ways in which we've tapped into these resources. Right now, the fiscal year 17 ending balance is $2,669.69. Our yearly allocation for our town, given our population, is $1,000. The board is going to be approving at the next board meeting more funds flowing into towns, and if that's approved, Charlotte would have an additional $1,000, so $3,669.69. I am unsure of the ceiling or the max for our town. I thought it was $3,000, but it might be $5,000. I apologize, I don't know the answer to that. Outreach, since I've been doing this twice a year, I advertise on Front Porch Forum, in the Citizen, and in the Charlotte News sort of RFPs. And informally, I know that Dean and Junior, as road commissioner and town administrator, they let me know if there are issues around town for cleanup that might be eligible for this. So the only project that's come forward this year is the CCS Quonset hut. And it's a little complicated for me because I've been so involved at school, so I want this to be a matter of public record. You are not the deciders of the grant. I technically am with CSWD, but it just feels, I've just been very involved there. And so this is, the Quonset hut is used as a maintenance space for the facilities people at CCS, and storage for large equipment, and then just storage as a surplus place for many, many years. And beyond that, I know there are issues with the Quonset hut, and I don't really know much about the history of it, why it's there, and what the other problems have been. But just recently, it's come to my awareness that it hasn't been managed very well, especially in the back part. And there have been some concerns about hazardous waste like fluorescent bulbs or untended, oil and paint. And last fall, because of that, I called in CSWD and again this summer to sort of look at what was going on and to offer their technical assistance. And they actually recommended, they thought this was a cleanup site, and they recommended that CCS apply. So they did. And yeah, what makes me feel very hopeful about this situation is that there are new people involved. So there's a new COO, there's a new facilities person, and they've already been much more responsive and come up with a plan, and moving forward, I feel assured that that what the situation is now won't happen again. And they have been very open to accepting the technical assistance of CSWD. So I turn it over to you to explain what the plan is.
Can I ask what the
Yeah.
school's role is versus the town's role? Isn't that a school building?
It is a school building. The town's role is, again, you appointed me, and they are a public entity within the town. So there's eligibility for people to apply to help with a cleanup grant if they're either private or public. And the guidelines are that it's supposed to be of benefit to the greater public good. I think school is a place where a lot of people congregate, and you certainly want things to be managed well with hazardous waste, special wastes, keeping as much out of landfill as possible. So the fact that this has lapsed is largely school's responsibility, but it also feels like something that CSWD is committed to helping communities, member towns with, and it feels like an appropriate use to me.
What's the building being used for now?
It's being used in the front as the maintenance person's workshop area. A lot of supplies are stored there for maintenance purposes. It's used for large equipment like the mower or the snowplow or tractor. And then in the back there, the schools need places to put desks and chairs out of use that aren't broken, could be potentially used again. So it's used in that way, but unfortunately it had been used in other ways too. And
So I know it was part of like a warming hut at one point.
Well, and when
I have no idea.
when I was at CCS, it was the
There was
for cross-country ski, a gym class, we used to go out there.
There
for
were
cross-country
classes
Yeah.
on there.
I don't know all the history.
So frankly, I think this was a situation of somebody having space and you put stuff in your garage and you just leave it there until someone makes you clean it out. And with the changeover of the facilities director in that location, we've decided now's the time to clean it out. So the school district is absolutely willing to take responsibility to clean that space out. Things like sports equipment should be what that space is used for, not doors that were ripped out of the building 20 years ago and have no use. So what we really decided is a good fit for the Chittenden Solid Waste grant here is that there's two ways that we could really clean out this space. One is you back up a trailer and you start throwing stuff out whenever I've got, maintenance folks who have some spare time. And we had 2 quotes that have come in, and they think it could be up to 150 cubic yards of material. So it will take a long time to get this out a little bit at a time. And it would all go to the landfill. Everything that could go to the landfill, it's going to the landfill because someone's got 2 hours, they're gonna throw stuff in the. The other way we can do this is, a lot more eco-friendly, the way we'd really like to do it. And that would involve being able to, what we'd like to do, our plan is to take it's a Friday, October 20th, which is, there's no school that day, is to have time to empty out that facility and put stuff out for the community to take what they can reuse. And carefully sort things out to take it to places like the Restore or the resource group. Really try to divert as much from the landfill as we possibly can, and then have, by hiring some additional staff to help us, sort it out into the correct kinds of materials so that it can be, again, diverted from the landfill instead. So we have 2 plans. We're going to do one or the other, but the more careful one costs about $1,500 more, and that's what the amount that we've asked for the grant from Chittenden Solid Waste to help us do that more thoughtfully.
Is the grant, is there any matching portion, or is,
Well, we're going to end up, with about $3,000. Let me see, but $3,500 of labor coming from my staff, and this would be on top of that to bring staff in to help do it more correctly.
so
There's
Abby,
no-
you
sorry.
just said there's 2,600 plus another $1,000, $3,600 that you're gonna have from the grant, right?
Those funds are available to the town of Charlotte, yes.
But
And-
there's a request for 1,500.
1,500.
Coming from the school.
Right.
Oh, an additional
Yeah,
50.
No,
just
that's just
1,500.
So we'll still have some money in the fund
Right.
for other projects in the future
Yes,
or to
exactly.
accrue for another year.
Yep. That's correct. And there's no requirement of matching in this grant anyway. There was in the container grants that CSWD had, but not for this one.
So you guys you're informing us, you're gonna proceed with
Yeah,
what you think
I
is the right way to go?
wanted the town to sort of know in this public forum, and just because I just also felt I don't need to necessarily recuse myself, but I've been really involved, so.
Great.
And it's, so I just wanted your feedback. Any questions, concerns you had, I wanted to hear about it.
What about the beauty of the site? Those weeds are now trees. It hasn't been painted in 50 years.
Yeah, I have to tell you, so this is kind of interesting. As I was looking through files to find things on the Bob Mason's files, I found a bid for taking the whole thing down, and it was going to cost $100,000 to take that down, because it has some asbestos issues and lead paint issues, and plus, as Abby said, there is some useful space, so that didn't even count having to use some. So our new property management director for the district, he had a good point. Part of the consolidation, we are going to try to be consolidating things like purchasing, which might mean that you're buying for the whole district, and we need place to put materials. And so there could be he really wants to keep that facility, but that would have to go into our capital plan because it does need some. Once we empty it out, it's still going to need some work, but it's definitely on our radar. I think this is one area where the school district consolidation is going to be super helpful, because you've always had the facilities director being overseen by a education related principal, right? And now we're putting this more into a more professionally managed facilities, operations and maintenance group. So
Yeah.
I think you'll see. I think
Well,
you've
there's
already
real evidence, there's already evidence for, that there's been significant change just since the summer. It's been amazing.
Positive.
Very much
I
so.
heard you just said, but I didn't quite hear the answer. So
Oh.
I got the internal, I got that part.
Okay.
The external, how did you answer that?
I'm just saying that we do want to make
Keep
that.
it, make it look
keep
better.
And
Improve its
improve
looks,
it, yeah,
maybe.
improve its
You're
looks.
gonna cut the
If it's-
trees down,
The weeds that are not
the
trees.
weeds that are now trees.
I hear you. We'll put
So
some on the list.
Great
this is in a plan beyond this
Yeah.
to take care of the
right?
Yeah.
But I can't get the solid waste district to pay for that, so.
Oh.
No,
I just wanted to put in a plug, if it's possible, to contact our rec department, that, 20 years ago, the school did everything with after-school programming. Now, the rec department, and Nicole Connolly, who's here, does a lot of programming with the school and at the school with not school activities. So it might be possible in the brainstorming of the use of that space to have possible storage that might be of interest.
Sure.
If
Good idea.
if we could look at that, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so any other comments?
We're going to clean the junk drawer.
Clean the junk drawer. It's a really big drawer.
it's a really big drawer.
I got frostbite in there.
And,
quite a
and
few
just to
times.
clarify one thing, there are a lot of items in there that are actually banned from the landfill, so that the school would have to comply with all of those rules.
You know, like big
Under Act
batteries and-
148 and 175, they could not be just, pulling up a dumpster and expeditiously
peels.
putting it in there. So that would not have happened yet. But this is a good plan that they're proposing, so. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Coming
it.
tonight.
Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you. Sounds like a rite of passage, surviving cross-country ski class
I remember it used to be used for warming.
for the skating rink.
Okay, roads, grant and aid pilot project. Good evening, Junior. Who wants to kind of headline this?
I can describe it, and then Junior can weigh in. So the state is coming up with a permit that all towns will need to comply with, basically to address water quality issues. And they're offering some money to help towns do this at this point. So they've indicated they would offer for Charlotte $9,700. We would, for a project, and then we would have to contribute an additional 25% of the $9,700, which is $2,425, to a project that addresses the road permit issues, which primarily are rock lining ditches and similar projects like that. So there was an area on Lewis Creek Road that I think Junior indicated he was interested in doing anyway, and this would provide some money towards that.
And the money that we have to contribute, the $2,400, where's that money available from?
Road budget.
Yeah, the highway,
Yeah.
In the highway budget?
yeah.
So that wasn't a part of your budget plan, but you can,
Well, it actually was part of my budget plan. I mean,
Okay.
I was planning on doing that.
because we submitted this, June of this year, but okay, it was prior,
Yeah.
June 28th, we submitted this and we got approved. So, when would you do this work?
Probably soon, this fall for sure.
I think they'd like it to be done if possible by October 31st.
Yeah.
And our role would be to, as a motion, accept the grant?
Accept the grant and promise to pay $2,425 towards the project
From the highway
from the highway fund.
budget?
Yeah, budget.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Says work with Regional Planning Commission to complete report template for each additional BMP. What additional, the last bullet point says work with Regional Planning Commissions to complete the report template for each additional BMP.
Best management practice.
So we're agreeing to identify a bunch of these?
Well, it references page 4 of the invitation letter.
page 3.
So there is a form that's attached, right?
Yeah, I don't see any additional ones. Grass, the dark gray on page 4 of the invitation letter, grass and stone line drainage ditches, turnouts, and other disconnection and infiltration practices. Those are the best management practices to be implemented using the grants and aid funding on this segment.
So we're saying we're going to comply with that.
Which says it's 4 segments, but we've identified 1. How many segments will be fully brought up to the draft MRGP standards using the grants and aid funding? 4 segments, and we've identified 1.
The area that we would rock line, I think, is, they use a measurement to determine what a segment is, so it may be at least, it may be more than 1 segment. It may be at least 2, it may be more segments. Do you know, Peter? They were talking about different,
Yeah, basically 2 different spots.
yeah.
It says work with the Regional Planning Commission to complete the report template for each additional BMP, which is on the letter that we sent with the grant. So what do we have to do?
This may be somewhat of a boilerplate letter that they sent out. Basically, we're just doing the rock lining of the ditch. I don't think we're, there's been no discussion of anything else.
Dean, you said 25% local match, and it says 20.
I heard 20. Did you say
Did I say 20?
No, he said, I thought, I heard you say 25.
Okay, you're right,
I-
20, yeah, 20.
It's 20%, yeah, you-
700
I
times
just
0.2,
thought I heard it
which
say-
is 1,940.
How much is it?
1,940.
Okay, so you were right then, right?
I thought I heard him say 25%.
Okay.
And that adds up to the 11,640, which is noted there. Yep.
Okay.
So it's 4 sections of Lewis Creek Road. It's basically has 4 segments of Lewis Creek Road, all in the application. I don't know what,
Sorry, I suppose if you identify the rock in one, it may have an indirect effect on adjacent one or
Oh, so
something.
that's where you come with the 4 segments, it's in here.
yeah.
So we filled out the right-hand side, right?
Actually, regional planning did.
And they've given 4 different ID numbers for them.
Yep.
231, 232.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
No, the match was how much?
Dean just said that 20% is 1940.
Now, what part of this is in kind for the match? It says that you can use the crew, the labor, if that can be considered in kind.
It's not really in kind because we pay for that out of the road budget, highways budget.
Okay.
So we're not using in kind. It's just going to be Junior's work and from the highway fund. But give you a shovel.
So it'll be 9,700 plus the 1940.
Right,
Yep.
So it'll be $11,640
right.
project. I'll make a motion to accept $9,700 from the Municipal Roads Grant and Aid Pilot Project for the rock lining ditch on 4 identified segments of Lewis Creek Road, to include a 20% match of $1,940 from the town highway budget.
So that's seconded.
I'll second.
You good with that, Junior?
Yes.
Anybody have any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Library. Updated job descriptions. You're going to talk to us? You're invited to the front so we could hear you on the,
Now, for something way less complicated.
that looked pretty common.
I have a correction to the first page of the packet for each staff position. So this is the catalog. You can alphabetical order.
So just to put this into historic perspective,
So
in
what am I taking
2014,
off?
These are all the same.
the positions were described, the library board at the time made descriptions for each of the different positions. And so back in December of this year, we were looking at those descriptions, and it felt like if a given staff member quit that day, that the descriptions that were available didn't really describe what the person in that position would need to do and what background they would need to have.
Just a second. Before
Yeah.
you're losing my focus a bit. So I have 2 stacks of the same thing. Charlotte Library, cataloging librarian, request for change of placement.
Yes.
They're both the same.
No, they're not.
They're not?
I made a mistake in the text of this one, so this is the replacement. I'm
So-
giving you a new front page of that.
Which do I keep? Do I throw
Which
one
is
of the?
That one and throw that one.
Okay.
Trinity.
Okay, so we've got that. Let me, give us one more minute.
Yep.
Got to get this together in my head here. Okay, so that goes there, I got it. So that front page, I lost my pen, oh, there it is. So this page goes out. Okay, and this is new.
And there'll be a new cover sheet for each position.
For each position, just to make it really fun.
Okay. So,
Technology.
Assistant Director Services.
so that goes there. So then this is a new cover page for Charlotte Library. What's ill?
Interlibrary loan.
And so there's a packet
It's
that
like
is,
MPV, but
where do I find that packet?
I have an extra packet.
You're confusing me. So where do I put the interlibrary loan local history? Which packet does that go to?
There'll,
The interlibrary loan logos.
there'll be another,
There should be another.
there
set.
should be another thing underneath there.
Aha, there is. Thank you. Okay, so then we crossed that one out, and then this is the new one. Got it.
So initially, as part of our responsibility on the Board of Trustees, we decided that we should redo the job descriptions. And then we talked to Dean, and he said, oh, you need to present those to the board. And so we said, okay, we'll do that. And so we feel that the new job descriptions are, in fact, do describe the position more accurately. And then in doing that, we realized that some of the placement on the grid seemed like it wasn't quite up to snuff. So, and Margaret will go through that. So, but then it seemed ridiculous to come and present the job descriptions and then come back again and do the placement on the grid, since it kind of involves the same thing. So we're trying to save time here.
So tell me this, so let me
yes.
ask you a couple questions. So I
Please.
looked at the package, you did a very thorough job. So we're gonna have to focus, take each job, take a look at what you've done, take a look at the Palmer, see if we agree with you. It's gonna probably take 45 minutes to an hour per assignment here to go through, because we have to compare it with other jobs in the town for equity.
Yes.
So it's not something
That can be
we can do tonight.
Right.
So,
We would like to give a small presentation of why
Okay.
we think it's necessary.
Okay.
And also, I think we'll show you, put them on the grid, and it doesn't seem like anything's completely out of line. But I agree, it's definitely a process, and it's quite, the grid is quite appalling, no, scary. Anyhow, so we feel, this goes back to about a year ago in December. We were particularly concerned about 3 of the positions, and there wasn't, and I asked at that, or really before that, about a grievance process for the grid, and it didn't seem like there quite was one, so we feel like this could, take care of everything in one fell swoop, maybe. Okay, so Margaret will,
So, here it is, the job
so
description.
are we gonna be asking, so when we're gonna, I think one of our actions, they're gonna say Friday or Thursday at 4 o'clock, whatever the date is, we're gonna get together, we're gonna have a working session. Are you gonna have to do this again, or this is kind of getting us thinking about it?
this is just to get you thinking about it, I believe.
And then you would come to that meeting and
We can
It is
walk
my
us.
understanding,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
that we would be there. Okay. So this is just an introduction to how we got where we were and why we're here today. Some highlights of the job changes that are reflected in the packages that you have. The cataloging librarian position now has a supervisory role for Saturday shifts, and that includes training of assistants and volunteers. Our circulation librarian has taken on the role of managing our social media. So if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, that's thanks to that position. The interlibrary loan, that's what ILL stands for, so responsible for the coming and going of all materials that are borrowed from other libraries for Charlotte patrons or sent out to patrons at other libraries. That position is sort of piggybacked with the local history librarian, and again, that job now has a supervisory role for Saturday shifts. And upon reflection, we realized there was a lot of more detailed research and knowledge that was required to maintain that position. The tech services librarian, there's an increased role for IT maintenance and security. That is all done in-house at the library now. We don't have a consultant come in and do any of our updates or anything. This job also includes programming responsibilities. The youth services librarian has administrating and program responsibilities that have grown since the job was described. This also should say, and I just ran out of room, assistant director, because that is an important part of this job description, and that would include being responsible for the management of the library in the director's absence. So that's something that isn't quite accurately or at all accurately reflected in the old job description. So as far as relation to the job evaluation grid scores, just to give you a few examples, we, upon review, decided that the supervision received score for the cataloging librarian should be changed from 25 to 30, using the language from the Palmer evaluation booklet. Works under minimal administrative supervision on broad and diverse assignments, and that really corresponds to management of the library during Saturday shifts when that person is the only person on deck and they're, dealing with whatever comes in the door or down the pike. And supervision exercised for the same reason is trains, plans, assigns, and is responsible for quality of work or one or two persons, and that corresponds to being responsible for the student assistant and the volunteers that are in the library during the Saturday shifts. There are other details of these that we could go into when we meet later on, but these are just a few of the highlights. The circulation librarian, as I mentioned, is now responsible for our social media, and that would be mastery of a broad base of knowledge, organizational and language skills that hadn't been reflected in the previous job description. Similarly, complexity of work. And informational accountability, our concern was that with the increased attention being focused on hacking, and you might say, who cares what library books anybody takes out, but it is against the law to reveal that information. So it means that the person who has this job has to be extra careful about that data. The interlibrary loan and local history librarian, as I mentioned before, the local history component of the job requires extensive knowledge of a topic and research methodology. Complexity of work. The interlibrary loan aspect of this job has changed, and there's additional computer skills and data analysis that are required. And similarly to the cataloging librarian position, they are sharing Saturday shifts, that there is this duty to manage the library during Saturday hours. The tech services librarian qualifications, we felt that should go up because of the maintenance of all the hardware and software at the library. Requires specialized knowledge, especially cybersecurity for the library community. Complexity of work, I don't think STEAM education was even in anybody's brain when the first job description was created, so.
Does everyone know what STEAM means?
Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which is a big, Cheryl could tell you, is a big component of what happens at libraries for adults and for children. Nature of contacts change, access to sensitive information similar to the circulation librarian, and informational accountability because of the analysis and processing of library data. The Youth Services Assistant Director qualifications would go up. The knowledge and skills that is needed to plan and implement youth programs has skyrocketed. There's so much more detail involved than there used to be. And I think that would similarly go along with the complexity of work. Supervision received, works independently on the planning and directing of youth programs, as well as the collection of, creating and maintaining the youth collection of books and other materials. Responsible for purchasing supplies and materials for the library, and manages the library in the director's absence, as I mentioned before. The nature of contacts, again, just the access to information and the types of conversations that are being had in libraries today. I think that really needs to reflects why that might need to be increased, or not might need to, should be increased. Some additional job-related activities and trainings that, and I can spell activities even though I didn't spell it there, that the library staff and have participated in presentations at state and regional conferences. As I mentioned, increased focus on STEAM education, and that includes attending workshops and building up what we offer here at the Charlotte Library, and continued focus on the collection and development of our local history collections. Some professional activities include service on the vocal cataloging committee,
a member of the board for the Friends of the DCF, that's the Dorothy Canfield Fisher, that's a statewide book award for elementary school students. Service as president of the Vermont Library Association, member of the American Library Association Sustainability Roundtable, and providing input on the Feed Vermont and Farm to Institute education efforts. So with that being said, here is our proposal for changes. This is where with the changes to the job descriptions, which led to the change in the evaluations, this is where the library staff would be placed on the pay grid. It's condensed, as you can see, but this gives you some idea of where we are. It's less than 0.5% of an increase in the staff budget and less than $30 per payroll session. So it's not a big impact, but I think professionally would make a big impact for the staff, and I think as someone who's responsible for them, and I think the library board would say the same thing, we would be fulfilling our due diligence by having this happen. So that is that. Are there any questions?
Did you have just getting back to my organization, did you have a front page for everything, including circulation library? That's one
I do.
You did?
I do. Do you
That was
need
turned
one?
out? I don't have that one.
Oh, yep, here you go.
So
There's a
one,
bunch
two,
of extras here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I need the circulation library, so I have that one, so the old one is, thank you.
When you came to the conclusion that the old board screwed up and didn't, so you
You're
went,
saying that things have evolved and changed, and when I looked at the previous descriptions, they didn't really describe what people are doing today, now.
okay, so whatever, change.
Yeah.
And you said you determined that you couldn't hire somebody for what was in there. How did you do that? Did you take the,
What do you mean,
well,
we didn't say we couldn't hire.
one of you said that if you were going to rehire someone for that position, that you wouldn't be able to do it unless you revised
Well, I'm
it.
saying that it would be better to have a job description that really says these are the things that this person would have to do.
The person who is in that job today does, we expect them to do those things.
Yes. So they're completely different or significantly different from what they were doing 2 years ago?
Not,
Well, I think partly it's that we have a better understanding of what they are doing.
So you didn't know what they were doing 2 years ago?
Well,
I'm having a hard time.
If you look at the job descriptions, they are very general, and we felt like this was a good opportunity to be more specific about the duties that are involved in each position.
I think giving any employee the opportunity to rewrite their job description so it looks more advantageous is not part of the plan. I mean, everybody can just rewrite their job and say, I need a Palmer analysis.
Well, but the library staff didn't. I mean, certainly we gave them the opportunity, but it was the library, it was me and Nan, under the direction of the rest of the library board, that undertook this project.
But the last library board spent an awful lot of time going over this. So,
but it was, 4 years, 3.5 years ago?
and the comment, there was a comment about if you determine it'd be hard to hire someone to fill in that job at the points that were there, which implies the pay rate that was there, or the existing pay rate. Was there any looking into what is
Yes.
actually paid, including benefits,
At other libraries?
at other libraries?
Yes.
That would be interesting to see.
Okay, I can bring that when we meet, for sure.
And if now someone has a Saturday supervisor job that they didn't used to have, the person who used to have it gets a pay cut because they're not doing it anymore?
That person doesn't work at the library on a regular basis anymore.
So to change job descriptions when somebody quits and you get a new person.
Well, I think the thinking was,
That we need
I
to-
agree with you that you can't sort of play fast and loose with positions. But we had a Saturday librarian position, and that was sort of somewhat specific to one person. That was a learning mistake that was made, perhaps, that you don't need to do that. And it has become clear that it is very hard to find someone who wants to work just Saturdays at the Charlotte Library. So in consultation with the board, we made the decision to change 2 positions so that it would include, if that position, if the interlibrary loan, local history job, or the cataloging librarian, if either of those jobs opened up, the next person who applies for that job, when they get the job description and when they come in for an interview, one of the first things is that this means you're working 2 Saturdays a month, right? And if you don't want to do that, then this isn't the job for you. So this actually was an opportunity to codify some of those things that had not had that happen before.
So if there's another board, are we going to get more changes?
No.
Might be another selectman.
Those probably change faster than the library board.
So,
The professional activities you listed, were those all new that weren't around 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Those are, I would say, for the most part, I don't know if Cheryl and you are here, you would know, but I think most of those are new to, since we've done our,
It's, the reason that, we enjoy those
yes.
extra positions.
And that's only a small selection. I
But
mean,
it's
there's a
also
long
getting,
list.
The Charlotte Library in the town of Charlotte, statewide, we're recognized as, we have a strong library. We serve on a lot of state boards. I've done regional presentations in New Hampshire representing the Charlotte Library. So it's just, part of,
So if
no, it's
another-
not part of my job description, but I think it behooves the town of Charlotte that I do
Yes.
that extra bit of work.
So for example, if our road commissioner opted to join all kinds of statewide organizations and other processes, he should get.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about being the road commissioner. I know for the library, it only helps you to be seen as a place where things happen. That makes us a more attractive place for people in this town to come to. That makes it a more attractive place for people from out of this town to come to. It enhances our ability to get grants and other sorts of funding.
I think the library has, their programming has gone up incredibly by their own
Yes.
choice, because that's, the town is asking for it and they're delivering it. So my feeling was we need to at least try to make sure that they're getting a fair evaluation in terms of their placement on the grid,
How does the town ask for those services?
that people come in and say, hey, I want my,
Well, and we did a strategic plan that involved a community forum and a survey, and that combined with a lot of anecdotal information is how we determine, that's how we determine what we do. We're here because the community decides to fund the library, so we need to make sure that we're doing what the community would like us to do. And judging by the success of most of our programs, I would say that we are doing what the community likes us to do.
let me ask you, you have, I think there are 5 packages here. Each one of these is going to take us an hour or so of focused time. Do you want to, kind of off the record, 6 months or a year ago, well, this one is really the most important one? Do you want to get us going and get the tough ones? It's going to take a lot of time, is what Fritz is leading up to. We set this foundation, technology changes, does that mean you get paid more money because you're keeping up with your job? I mean, we have to ask all those questions when we go through each one of these. So just because you got a new computer, does that mean you have to have more pay?
But, I mean, it's really not so much about the pay. I mean, this all,
It's supposed to be responsibility.
yeah. And also, I mean, this really started, to be honest, because the technical librarian was on the end of the grid, and we just, and when you're on the end of the thing, there's no, you can't.
Well, that's part of the system, though.
Well,
If you've been in a job 10 or 15
So they wanted more
years.
money, so you would
No.
change the
No,
job
no, no, no.
description to get it that
But the
way.
point is, I mean, look at the amount of money you're talking about. It's minuscule.
Well, it's the principle we have to
But,
work
yeah,
with,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the issue.
Well, then I
Nothing-
think that was sort of the spur to get us started, and then I think that led us to look at the assistant director position, and that maybe things weren't quite scored the way they should have been for that job, and then once then it was like, oh, there's additional responsibilities in the cataloging librarian position, so we can't ignore that. And then you can't do 3 and not do the other 2. I mean, that just doesn't seem, then you're not,
Don't
the
think
library
this is-
board and I are not doing our job by
You don't
looking
think
at
this is
everything.
going to induce every other employee to do the same thing?
But that's not my
I mean,
job,
that's-
and that's not the library board's job. The library board's job is to look after the library staff.
Would you like to add something, Christina?
I just have a question, actually, and it might clarify some things for the library. An employee cannot change the step they're on. Is that correct? If they are on step 15, if you increase their job grade, they stay at step 15, correct? Because that could clear up some of this monetary factor, because they've moved some steps for some of the people that are going to move up in grades to keep the cost very close to what they do now. But I'm pretty sure the discussion of the grid is that you stay on the step you're at. So if your job increases 2 grades and you're at a step 10, you stay at a step 10. Am I correct?
I think so.
Well, then.
That's the whole
We've got
point
some
of
more
these.
work to do.
Huh?
That's what I thought.
Then we have some
But
more work to
the
do.
whole philosophy of pay growth
Mm-hmm.
was you get a new employee, learn, and then they kind of stabilize their contribution. And it's incentive for the new employee, and then it's typical in public, private, that you flatten out a bit. And it's a debate we've had in the town hall for about 2 years rather intensely.
But if you're looking at, and looking only at the library positions, that's what I'm familiar with and feel somewhat knowledgeable enough to talk about. For instance, if you look at the technical services position, and we're talking about a job description and a pay range that would induce someone to come and work here and take that job, should that position become vacant. And based on the research I've done, we could not find someone to do that job for that money. And that position right now, that person is at the end of that. And that doesn't seem fair.
Fair. Neither does it starting and being at step 5 when you start your very first year, when you're supposed to be getting the benefit of being a new employee.
There's a lot to this.
No, I know, and as I said, all I know is the library stuff, so
I
I,
can't,
I once
can't
heard
speak
it
to
said
any
that
comments.
once you hit a certain spot on the grid, you're not as valuable. The longer you work for the town, the less valuable you really are. And I heard it with my own ears, so I know it.
Well, we should just pay everybody what they want.
Yeah.
Put it on the budget and see if it sticks on the wall.
Are we thinking of doing this as a work session?
I think what I'd like to
4 or 5
do is,
o'clock.
I think you said the tech librarian, I think you've told me over the last year is the one that was the highest priority for you, and then everyone else jumped aboard. So,
well, I wouldn't quite,
Huh?
well, I would not describe it that way.
Okay.
That was the one that at the very beginning, when this first was presented, stood out as the outlier, because And I had conversations with people saying, she's gonna max out in 2 years.
Well, that's not a
And-
bad thing, though.
No,
I've been
well,
told this-
let me finish. And that doesn't seem, for someone who is new in her position, that doesn't seem to be, and is using skills and knowledge that I felt did not get scored correctly on the grid.
You can't max out in 2 years because you cannot start above a pay grade 5 and I think, or a step 5, and I think we go to 15. So
Well-
a new person can't, as Christina just said, the most experienced person, a new employee to the town will be a step 5, and there's 10 more steps to go.
But when she was but you took all the current employees and
Right.
just placed us on the grid, and so she was placed at.
Current employee.
A
Okay.
current employee, she was placed at step 13 or something, which did not seem to be the right place, given the skills and knowledge that that job needs.
My only frustration is we had your board here 2.5 years ago, and you, Margaret, back and forth. We did this 3 or 4 iterations with the board, and we really developed a consensus and a foundation. And now, you're asking us to redo it again, and I guess we have an obligation to do that. So back to my question is, what do you want us to do first? We'll have a work session and we'll go through it.
Okay. I guess I would like the library board has a meeting on Thursday, and I would feel like it would be
Okay.
best to report to them about what happened, and then they could let me know where they would like things to start.
So this will take us, I don't know what my fellow board members think, but every other week, maybe at 4 o'clock, we'll pick one of these and go through them and.
It'll only work for me on a Friday, and that's gonna be minimal from now until January, for me personally.
I can do most Fridays. I would just like everyone, there are some new members on the board from the original discussions with the board of directors from the library, but it is pretty clear that there's a statutory authority of the board of directors of libraries to set the pay. And at the time, the board of directors, at the time that the town wanted to create a payroll grid system, the board of directors of the library voluntarily included their employees in the town system because currently it's all part of one town budget.
Yeah.
Some towns have libraries where they have a separate vote from the town and the entire library budget is not in the municipal budget. So there are, I guess, some moving parts there that I would want to just refresh everyone's memory are there that makes us slightly different than looking at other town employees. But we've committed to having the pay grid be fair and equitable among all town employees, and so this is why we'd be looking at that in that lens.
Very valid point, you're right about that. And then the board said, yes, we'll all work together with the objective of equity among all town employees. So you're going to get back to us.
Yep.
Do we want to set our first date to look at one?
Sure.
Well, let me ask, a lot of you guys are working, some of us don't.
Fridays are,
I can't do anything after 4 o'clock on Friday.
Can't do anything after 4.
oh, that's tricky. 3:30 is the
I have-
earliest I can get here from work.
We can talk really fast.
I'm more like 5.
We can talk.
What was that?
I'm more like 5 o'clock.
You're not available until 5?
Yeah.
I just have the people I have working with me now. I'm really not gonna have a consensus of what I can do extra until like after January till it's a lot of new people and gotta
Right.
figure things out.
Are there other Mondays?
4:30 on a Monday or something?
Yes, Mondays are,
The wastewater board meets at 5:30 every Monday that we don't have a select board meeting. So I won't be at any of those.
5:30.
Well, why don't you tell us what your priority is and convey what Matt just said, because is the
Yep.
factor. I guess we're gonna have a little trouble setting this up, but we will.
Yeah, we could have regular select board meetings and start an hour early and just maybe
Right.
take one at a time and
Okay, we
do it
Sure,
in 5
yeah.
meetings.
I'm totally
Maybe 2
available
and-
on Mondays
Select board
after
Mondays.
4.
Start a meeting at 6 or,
Okay, you want to do,
5:45.
I for one won't be here on 2 Mondays
Well, you should be here for that, so
for that
it's
one.
gonna take everybody.
I think so too. I think some of the,
I wasn't here, I wasn't on the board when you, the first
Is
time,
that
so.
October 9th would be the
It's
next?
really like
yeah, that's
3
fine.
or 4 years ago that you must have done this.
Yep. So October 9th, 6 o'clock, is that our next meeting after the 28th? So why don't we say that, that'll be our first look.
Okay, thanks.
And we're gonna cut it, we'll have to cut it off at 7 just because we have to get into our
Budget.
budget. Thank you
Thank you.
for your understanding of this. Library update. Okay, budget presentations, recreation. You're invited to the front. So we have, good evening, recreation. So we have, your handout is,
Yep.
okay, do you want to kind of walk us through it then?
Yep. So the front page just kind of gives you the breakdown of what we're looking at. And then what I did was if there was any questions on any of them as I go through it, the back kind of breaks down for the FY 18-19, it's a budget breakdown of exactly kind of how I came to these numbers so that there's an understanding. And then also with the 2018-19, I have the recreation budget separate since the rec expenses are kind of separated on the budget line. And then the last part is the 16-17 budget review. So it just kind of looks at what went well and what didn't, just some notes so that you're kind of aware of what happened and what didn't happen. So kind of just going through the beginning for the beach attendance, it's increased quite a bit just due to the pay grid. Because of the minimum wage and everything increase. I met with Mary and spoke to her just what would be a great, like kind of a number to start with, and basically kind of guesstimate, and that's where I came to possible. There's about 101 possible beach days times about 10 hours per day, and then that's 1,010 hours, and then I times that by $11 per hour for the beach attendance, and that's where I got 11,000. I have a feeling it's going to be lower because, you know, there are rain days and they don't get paid for rain days. So I just put the number for 11,000 right there. Then going through.
So that's the minimum wage, the $11.
Well, that's what we kind of basically came to, is that that's a good starting number to start at. Because I'm not sure, it depends on if we have any of the beach attendants returning. It might be a third year for them, or you know, they might just be first on the grid, so that's why that looks like that. And then miscellaneous, we got rid of that. The beach maintenance, I put $3,300, and then I have it listed of different things that we're looking to do. Just a lot of it is the same maintenance that we always do. The water testing is pretty expensive. We've talked about it in our rec commission meetings that $1,700 for 3 to 4 months is pretty high. We've talked about different options of maybe making it so that you can't drink the water. But I know that we also do a lot of bike races and things of that sort, so I don't know if taking the drinking water away would really affect it. That's something that we talked about maybe discussing with you guys in a later meeting. But for now, we've added it to the budget.
How many tests are done? Just one?
7.
So it says drinking water is separate.
So
Oh, I see.
the drinking water testing is different than the beach water testing. The beach water testing is to test for E. coli at the beach, and then the drinking water, I think it's quarterly, Dean?
I think there was once a month for some and then quarterly for others.
Where are all the?
Right here, second point.
No, I
It's the
know.
sinks. They test the sinks and the spigots outside of so there's no actual water fountain.
Oh,
So
okay.
there was the idea of saying, don't drink the water, if you can see like on the
I was just
library.
trying to figure out how much it was per test. I mean, you got $1,700 here. I didn't know if it was one test, if it was 4 tests, if it was monthly.
Well, it's like a whole, it's actually like a whole bill. So they have how much it costs for the test, how much it costs for the person to travel and take the test, how much you charge the person per hour. So it's all broken down into, because we thought, hey, why don't we just do our own testing, like just like our rec commissioner? And then they said we would have to be under Jeremy, who does the the testing, so we would still be paying him, and it didn't really make sense money-wise.
Nicole, is that in the beach maintenance line item?
Yes.
It is.
Yep.
So the budgeted for 2018 is 4,000. Does the 3,300 still include the 1,700?
Yes.
Yeah, so I haven't
Yep.
decided to take that out.
So
Yeah.
We
go to
haven't
the
taken it
next
out yet,
page.
just because we didn't know if we could put, please don't drink the water.
Right.
So-
And I know at the Quonset hut, the school decided to do that at one point, and so there it says, water is not potable.
Exactly. So just, but I figure we leave it on here for now, and then we decide. But we, like, as the commissioners we all discussed that we think it's pretty high,
The cost, and
the cost of it.
compared to the importance of having drinking water? Or still, the jury's out on that with
Well, just
the
because
commission?
before, there was before we had Janine doing it in-house. So then now that we have it kind of contracted, it raised. So we're just looking at, when you think about the beach and how much the beach costs versus the revenues that we make, plus, having the beach attendants, we've always made a little extra money, if not broken even on the beach. And so now it seems like we're almost going to be, paying a little more for the beach.
I had a question for Mary on that. Do you have a sense of how much it costs to have a water cooler in the office for the year?
Government contract,
What is it, like 2?
every, so it's 5 gallons a week.
And then we get deposit back for the
Yeah,
bottles.
the homes.
What's the rental, like $13?
Yeah, $13 a month, I think, is the rental, so.
That's what it is. Like we rent the cooler for $13 a month. And then the water is cheap.
It's really cheap. We have the government rate, plus they give us $5 back for every bottle that they pick up from us too, so. Is it like
Might be.
$5, $4.99, something like that?
Less than $1 a
It
gallon.
wouldn't work at the beach.
Because I think the refund is like half, isn't it?
Well, it's gonna be about, mine, they charge $8 for a deposit, and it's about $5 or $6 a 5 jug. And then they charge a delivery, mine for 4 bottles a month, it's $25. I think the beach should go through 4 jugs a day if they thought it was fresh, cold water.
Well, this is one more thing
Protect.
One more thing to steal and vandalize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I put a water cooler down there. You can't
How
lock a
could
water
Janine
cooler
do
against
it?
the wall.
And certified in something?
The health officer?
Oh, is that something Joe could do?
For $1,700, we could probably,
Well, that was something she
You have to be
realized, that
certified.
we realized when Janine was here that we weren't really doing, we were supposed to be doing, was having the water tested.
Regular, at the right.
So can Joe,
So I think
Yeah.
that was not I don't think Joe's licensed. I suppose we could send him to school. I don't know.
So what's the Vermont Treasury water testing? What is, yeah. Yeah, it says Vermont Treasury water testing for $100.
it's right below
And we keep.
drinking water plumber.
Yeah, we got several water tests. I'm just trying to figure them all out.
That's an annual fee. The senior center has it, I don't know what it is, I just know it's an annual fee that the senior center at the beach. Do we have it here?
I mean, I'm assuming that we have the lake water and the water in the building, and I'm trying to figure out if this is an additional to the building,
This-
additional to the lake.
This is addition, I just know that it came to me like a couple months ago. Dean was like, oh, I'm paying this from the beach and other water through the state. So it was just, that's why I added it to the budget, because it came through as that it was another charge for the beach. So,
I can tell you what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the testing of the water just seems like a lot in general.
Well, I realize that, I'm just trying to figure out where all, I mean, we've got 2 sources of water and we've got 3 tests here, so I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, the other thing, I mean,
It may be a special test for either the water,
And
And
fee for
potable water,
processing the test.
or the lake. It might be an additional test, that they test the lake in several places
Well,
for something special. I don't, for the green algae, I don't know what it is.
Right, I do the beach water testing myself. I get the containers and I go down and I test the beach. So the water testing is just, the 7 tests is for the cost of just the beach.
Sending it in.
Yeah, just sending it in. But with the Vermont Treasury, I wasn't sure what that testing entailed.
well, and, I do it at home when I brush my teeth, but how many people do you think drink water out of the sink in the bathhouse?
I don't know how many. I think it was the only times that we've really used the water for drinking is during bike races when they stop.
From the spigot?
When we were stopped.
They'd fill their bottles.
You know, you say you take the bottle in to do the beach water testing.
Yeah.
We had a water system in another part of Charlotte where I lived. It was the same thing for the E. coli. They show you how to fill the bottle up, put the top on, and you seal it, you take it into the health department, and they never even used to charge. And that was
Yeah.
for drinking water.
They do now.
They charge us.
Well, I mean, the certification wouldn't be that complicated, I wouldn't think. Like if Janine did
I
it.
think it's different rules for the
The
state, for
tests are
public
pretty
water.
expensive now.
Yeah, okay.
The beach water test is just very simple. Like they send me this stuff, like you said, like anyone can do it. You just go in and I can even ship it as long as it's overnight shipping. So the beach water is pretty fine, self-explanatory. It's just the drinking water testing that there's like certain licensing and rules and things that you have to do in order to be part of it.
It might be possible, and maybe it's an avenue that could be looked into, having some type of sanitation system, a filtration system, might negate with state rules the need to actually do testing of a well. And we could look at how much that costs too. It might be $3,000 to put in a UV filter and a carbon filter at the well and have potable water. There might be another route that.
What do we spend for the town hall, do you know?
I was just gonna say, we have a big system
here, we
still test.
We test, we have a UV system here, so I don't know that gets us out of testing.
We spend $1,700 on
It's
this?
probably the same.
But we don't
about the same,
test,
yeah.
It's probably more because it's 12 months.
the
It's
filtering
probably more
doesn't,
because it's 12 months.
the filtering doesn't eliminate the E. coli, that's the problem. Get rid of the iron, the sulfur,
Well, UV would. I don't know.
that
if it
kills the E.
kills
coli.
everything living.
Doesn't eliminate the need for a test.
It might
Somebody
not,
has to
yeah.
come and certify it. We went through that when we put this thing
Okay, so
in.
where we're leaving that one?
Who's going to test it?
So
Did you
it's
find
just
Frank?
basically, I just wanted to just bring you that to your attention. Is something that we're kind of looking into on what avenue we'd like to go. And then we have the mileage we're keeping the same. The only thing that we did add is for the telephone, is $700, and that's how much the telephone costs for just the rec, my office phone. And so we thought that maybe instead of moving, even though it says telephone beach, it could be telephone office because the other offices have their own line. So that's why that was taken out of the maintenance portion, or the budget, the rec budget portion. The membership and dues is to be part of the Vermont Parks and Rec Association, which we have to be a part of every year, and that's the membership fee. Then when we move down to the tennis courts, we have $1,000 there, and we discussed that right now with the cracks, we had somebody come and fill the cracks and do some repairs, and it cost about $800, and it fixed a good amount of them. And so right now, while we prepare with our capital budget ways that we can raise some money to then repair the tennis courts majorly, or whether looking around the ditch area, we thought that just keeping $1,000 in case, we have a frost this season, that we're prepared. So that's why the $1,000 is in there. And then garbage removal, it pretty much stays the same. So I've kept it the same.
So that tennis court line item is for the reserve fund?
No, the
No,
tennis court
that's
item is
a
just for
annual.
like repair right now.
The annual repair, which
Yep.
I'm not sure if everyone on the select board knows, the repair that was done professionally this year was way better and more effective than the
crack
than the
repair.
volunteer repair work that had been done historically. So the commission,
Yep.
really looked at that and said, let's go with it.
Professional.
Historically.
Two-thirds of
Yeah.
the work was done professionally, the other part was done by extreme professionals. That would be the chair and myself.
Let me ask you, talking about the actual maintenance. What about the damage that was just done? I mean, do you have an estimate on that?
For the,
The current work, thing that just happened, some people have asked me, since you're on maintenance, I thought I'd bring it up.
Vandalism.
You know, the beach house breaking in,
oh, yes, I put a claim in for insurance.
oh,
The insurance, because we have to fill that out, so that's been submitted, and then what I'm gonna do is meet with the rec commission next week, or no, the week after, when Bill's here, and we're gonna discuss, you know, what we wanna do, because when they pulled off the siding, there's no, there's no boards that go beyond that, so they were actually able to pull off the siding and get through. So there was no like insulation, there was no plywood or anything that kind of like, so.
what was the estimate to repair the damage? What was that
We
estimate?
haven't gotten an estimate yet.
You submitted a claim, but you didn't have a
I
value.
haven't followed up, had to follow up.
What's our deductible in the town? Do we have a deductible for that stuff? Insurance claims? Huh?
We do have one, I don't have it.
It's usually, some of the town is usually $3,000, $5,000. Okay.
And then the ice rink, or the beach electricity is remaining the same, the skating rink electricity is remaining the same. The docks in and out, I kind of gave an estimate of that between, we spent $3,000 to $5,000, and that all depends on whether it's nice weather, or if it gets wavy, the water rises, we have to adjust the docks. So I kept it, or I have it at 4,000. And then the last portion, skipping over the rec director, is the rec expenses, which I have on the following page. Which kind of just gives a breakdown of how much I anticipate, but again, it varies based on participation, the number of students we have in the school.
Let me back you up, you were just saying about the revenue, so
Oh, did I skip? Well, I was.
beach revenue,
Well, we're still on program expense, so that's why I'm skipping
okay,
over a
that's a
sheet.
subset of all of the revenue.
Yeah, so the second page is a further detailed breakout of each line item,
Okay.
of what has been spent last year, or what you're budgeting for this year,
This year, and then the one that's 16, 17 is what happened last year.
which, this is kind of the model of what we ask committees to do when it comes to budget request season. This is very detailed.
So am I reading the right column? So the expenses are 48,666?
Yep.
And the revenue is 64,688?
No.
Is that where I'm?
No, that's the rec program expenses is the 48.7.
Yeah?
And then the revenue for rec program is 64.7.
Oh, yeah, just for the rec programming.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the beach fee income, I bumped it up to 12,500.
You bumped it up.
Well, not from actual, from the budget, right? So,
So if you look after docks in, docks out,
well,
I think it might be a separate page.
yeah, Lane was looking at the beach fee revenue. So on the back of page 1,
yep.
you'll see it's been budgeted on the back of the first page, the numeric page. What Nicole's been doing the last few years
I see.
is having kind of supply meet demand, and instead of, because with the beach fees went up at the same time that the beach popularity went up, and there was better, I think, collection of beach fees all at once. The revenues went up way higher than the budget, and instead of just throwing it up $8,000 the next year, Nicole's kind of taken that, and the commission has taken a conservative approach of notching it up and seeing where they meet. And it looks like maybe in a year or two, so budget FY18, it's 10,500, and actual is 15,000. So bumping it up another 2,000 budgeted for next year, expecting that it'll hopefully be between 15, it could be a bad year, it might be 14 or 13, so that's the conservative guessing on the budgeting. But it might be 17, which would be great, in which case you might bump it up to 3,000 next year.
There are more things available at the beach now, and if we do the right things, we could really jack it up. You know, do pickleball and tennis and the soccer and the
Disc golf.
disc golf.
Disc golf, yeah.
So as Fritz says, this is the model that we like, huh? That's good.
What was, did you have a line item budget for the rec program director?
No, I just, whatever, I guess, I don't,
Based on the grid?
whatever, yeah, the grid, whatever cost of living, I didn't,
That'll just be a plug and play number.
yeah, whatever it needs to, whatever it's supposed to be is fine with me.
And Frank, what was that Vermont Treasury water testing?
What? Oh, it's for transient, non-community systems. It's kind of like a, well, it makes you a member, and it's kind of like a helpline to help you out with it.
Oh, I see.
And they charge the
Probably
town
the
offices and the library the $100, and the beach the $100. I'm assuming since they're separate systems.
So my takeaway is the one thing to take a look at then is the drinking water testing. And one option is not to have potable water.
Yeah, and the commission has definitely been discussing that option.
Is that acceptable with just a sign? Or do you have to make sure that people cannot get water to drink?
I think a sign has been okay in the past. We have a sign out here, a sign at the library for the outdoor spigots. I believe that's all you need.
You know, buying
That's
30 cases of water bottles to be available in the case someone needs a water is not a bad thing to have. There's a new hut that's being made for beach attendants to collect fees from. You know, might not be a bad idea, just in case of emergency, there's a water
A
bottle
lot cheaper
than
this.
$1,700.
Any other questions from anybody? Oh, Mary.
Keep in mind when you're looking at the salary, that budgeted number for 17-18 is wrong, so you wouldn't want to just like apply a cost of living or whatever, in your formula to that number, because that's not the right number. It increased when you guys redid the job description.
The grade with
With
the
the
director.
director.
Anything else?
And the next meeting on the 25th is going to be, they're gonna come, Bill is gonna come and discuss the capital fund, and there's gonna be a couple changes with that, but we've been working with the rec commission, myself, we've been working, to think of different projects that we foresee in the future that we need, to attack and maybe refurbish, so it'll be,
Like tennis court upgrade,
yeah.
2 or 3 years down the road.
I think the big ones are,
Baseball diamond is a big one, making that useful again, because since we don't have Little League there, it's not being used. And that should be a major attraction.
yeah, it's a lot of land that's
Yeah.
available for
So,
recreation.
you still use it for baseball, or, I just drive by, is it a baseball field now? The one up, you're talking about where the other parking is up?
Yeah, Lakefield.
but it was being used for Little League.
Right.
Right.
And then they moved to another
Right.
field, and it's built to Little League dimensions.
I see.
And in order to get softball teams in, community,
I see.
baseball, softball, we need to expand it.
I think a couple other ideas that we talked about for looking down the road with the capital budget would be bathhouse improvements that create better security.
The playground.
And the playground is also,
Put some 2x4s in the bathhouse so they can't break through.
And another,
Something.
and another ditch around the courts, because that's causing the structural problems with the courts.
I know in some commercial spaces with high exposure, there's a wire mesh you can put
Yeah, put wire.
between,
Braided stainless wire.
yeah, that's it. It's,
They'll take the boards off, but they won't get inside.
right.
Yes, we put cameras, Mo went down with me the other day and put one of the, cameras up, so we're in the process of adding some more security to the beach.
Back up.
Does that have to be, is that
Yes, it needs to be
digital
changed.
deal good indefinitely, or once a month change it, or like is it a 24-hour reset, or?
There's a certain,
Memory.
there's a memory card that Mo said that he's willing to, right at the moment, take out and be in charge of and take the pictures off and,
He did that when he was
Reboot it.
on the safety committee
Yep.
with Greg 2-3 years ago, and
yeah, he's been great. We're,
Somebody put a plastic bag over it so we couldn't get footage.
we have some more, that we picked out some spots, so I think it'll be, hopefully try to,
create some accountability.
right, because every year there's always something that we're facing, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, come and join us.
So, simple one first maybe is the Charlotte Land Trust line item. No proposed changes. It's been 5,000 for a number of years, leave it at that. And that's one that if we don't spend it, it goes back in, so we're not accruing anything.
Does that, if we don't use it,
If we don't use it, it
That's an annual appropriation?
correct. Has to
it
be
just
voted.
gets
Yeah, use
thrown in, it
use
doesn't go to a fund?
No,
Right,
no. So, no
Okay.
proposed change in that amount.
okay.
No proposed changes in the uses, that sort of thing. Any questions on that one? No?
No.
Okay. And then I sent you as the guidelines of the Conservation Fund require that we submit a report every year to the Select Board, which I've sent you. One small change in the last paragraph, I said that there were 2 projects that had been on the list that are no longer on it. That should be 3. And none of those 3 are absolutely off the table. It's just that they've
This
been
is
on.
the backside of the, for us, right? Is this what we're looking at?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
So that should be 3, and they are off the list because they've been there for a number of years. And as I said, they aren't an absolute no. It's just that 2 of the 3 have new landowners who we've spoken to, who are not averse to the idea, but are just not ready to do anything. I thought for the sake of, I don't know, it just seemed right to take them off. They may reappear, but they're not on right now. So that's the biggest change. The 86-acre one at the bottom of the 3 was on this past year. The other 2 are new. Of those 2, the 90-acre and the 86-acre are the ones I would say are most likely to proceed at this point. The 90-acre one is is going through an appraisal right now, which the waiting list for those conservation easement appraisals is several months. So it'll be a few months before we know the numbers. I've used my best information to date to give you those numbers, but I can almost guarantee those will change once we see the appraisal and we can sit down with the landowner and really talk about real numbers as opposed to hypothetical. you'll see, as has happened in the years past, the numbers relative to the acreage are widely different in terms of percentages. But that's because of source of funding, largely whether or not a project is eligible for Vermont Housing and Conservation Board money, VHCB. So if there's no VHCB money available for a particular project because of what the type of project, then the town conservation fund becomes the principal piece of funding. So that's why you see such a difference with acreage and amounts. So what I did is, so the recommended addition to the conservation fund for next fiscal year is $80,000. As always, we we don't know how fast projects will come through, so that can change. But my rationale is if those two bottom ones at a total of $180,000 estimated conservation fund grants did move forward by the end of fiscal year, the next fiscal year, and we put $80,000 in, we will be drawing down the fund about $100,000. The fund right now is at $500,000.
500.
Yeah, we've talked over the years of what's a good base amount to keep in the fund. It's really, we had lots of discussion about that over the years. It's really hard to kind of know what it is. I mean, it's not a formula, but we've all pretty much known that we don't want that fund to go down too low because, of course, what we really want to avoid is any large allocation to make up lost ground. So it's kind of, that's why not a scientific decision, but 80,000, there was nothing that goes in this fiscal year. So if those two projects proceed, or something else crops up, but that was kind of my rationale for the 80.
If the 180,000
goes through and we do 80 in, then the fund will decrease by 100,000.
and if all three go, it would decrease by 200,000.
Correct.
So it'd be at 300,000.
I'd say there's probably, if we did, what in essence is about a year and a half from now, had done 3 projects, that would be very unusual. Although we have had years where we've had a couple come together and.
Are there any pending between now and the end of the fiscal year
No,
we're in?
there is, we have a project that'll close in a month or 2, but that's a donated easement. So right now, we don't have anything that will require purchase that will be in by the end of the year for sure.
One question, do you know if any or all of the Nordic farmland is in conservation, or
It's all.
It's all. Thanks.
How much is that, 600 acres? It was in
I
the
don't
paper.
remember.
It's a big number.
I say all, there might be some excluded land around the house or something, I'm not positive. But yes, all the fields are conserved.
Do you think that?
And I don't remember the number of acres.
You wouldn't have any, that's going to be settled between,
Yeah, and that
other than our,
actually, and I think this was, Clark pointed this out in that article that was in the Free Press this morning, the bankruptcy has no effect at all on the conservation. That land is conserved regardless of owner or what happens to the.
I guess my question was, is there any subdividable land that would
I'm not
come
aware.
on
I'm not aware that there
that we
is.
might be interested in conserving?
Oh, additional conservation? No, I don't believe there is. I think all of that's conserved. Pretty sure. So, and I'm sure Clark would let us know if there was an opportunity.
That's
He rarely loses a chance. But that's good. We've done some great projects.
That is good.
Yeah. So,
I'm
anyway.
sure we'll be looking at your 80,000 as we roll things up.
Absolutely, I'm sure you will.
Because-
Well, and as I said, I erred on the side of numbers that we have right now, that one that's being appraised right now. That may change.
So we'll look at it again in
That's why.
December.
Yeah, no, I know this is just the first round, so we'll adjust as things become clearer.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
And absolutely no salaries needed.
No salary adjustments for you?
No. Zero and 0 and 0 is 0, so easy enough.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the, next issue is the pay grade.
If I may step on, I'm from Lewis Creek Association, and we weren't on the agenda, but I think we were advised to come tonight, about $600 for the budget. Is that okay if I jump in?
Well, I'm not sure. Is it Lewis Creek?
I,
here, I thought today was the night.
I had been in touch with Marty about, but I thought it was, I didn't think it was tonight, but I could.
If there's
I
a different
apologize,
date, as
yeah.
long as we
There'll be
can
a
get
time.
5 minutes with y'all at some point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would have the
There'll be a
time.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll be in touch?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry
about
to
that.
wait.
No worries.
Okay, so you want to talk to us, so you have the pay grid open?
I think I don't actually have it up on the board, but I have copies.
It was in our packet.
Minimum wage goes up to 10.
So right now, where's the minimum wage thing?
So the issue is that with the increase of the minimum wage, which is a state requirement, on January 1st, it goes to $10.50, and that is our pay grade 1. Pay grades 1, 2, 3 are linked together so that if pay grade 1 goes up, 2 and 3 also go up. So the issue is that as of January 1st, 2018, pay grade 3 will be higher than pay grade 4. At least, yeah. So at this point, the state minimum wage has been through 5 years of increases. There's a little poster in there that indicates each one, and that's what we've been going by. I'm not aware of any future increases, although it certainly could happen in the minimum wage. The only one I know for certain is January 1st, 2018. So that presents a problem in pay grade 3 being higher than pay grade 4. One possible solution is to eliminate one of the pay grades, particularly because we don't have any employees in either pay grade 1 or pay grade 3 or pay grade 4.
Could you remind me of the relationship between 1, 2, and 3?
I believe they're 5% increases
But not linked.
between 3 and 4.
Right, so it's unlinked, then 4 through 20 are linked.
So how was 4 determined? Reverse from the top and 5% down?
4 was originally set at $11. It was close to being 5, is it 5%? Let's say 10.
Must have been more than 11.
Yeah, more than 5.
I think this is a philosophical, political question. When they raise the minimum wage and say it doesn't affect the rest of the businesses, it's hooey. This is a perfect example of when you may raise minimum wage for governments that use a pay grid system, it affects everybody. So the fair thing, in my mind, is to say, well, the state wants minimum wage to go up, everybody gets more money. Because
I don't think people making $60 an hour deserve a raise because the minimum wage has gone up, from
So
a
there's
philosophical perspective.
an internal equity. So what you just said is internal equity doesn't count.
That's not the equity. The equity is there's a minimum standard of living necessity that isn't relevant at a certain wage.
So just to get back to answer Matt's question, pay grade 4 was originally set at 11, and it was a little bit less than 5% higher than pay grade 3.
2?
4 compared to 3. You asked.
Well, no, my
4
question was they were severed. 1 and 2 and 3 were connected through a relationship.
Right.
4 through 20 were connected through
Right.
a separate relationship.
Right,
4 through 20, the philosophy was 5% per grade.
true, you're right.
1 through 3 was.
It's also 5%.
So what was the division between 3 and 4?
There was just a break in terms of the formula. It was close actually to being 5%.
But it was,
Well,
there
we
was a
got
break because we were trying to forecast the minimum wage.
Right,
It just
we
didn't go
unlinked
up
it
as
because
much.
of the minimum wage.
Right, right.
And it's in our policy, actually.
Right, I remember, I just don't remember every word of it,
It's
but.
not defined in the policy, which is your problem, because it's very random. Grade 4 right there at 1109 on my piece of paper here is the $11, which is your base salary, which I brought that up before, like what, I don't even know what base salary means. So, but in the grid, the formula is that $11 base salary times a cost of living of 1.008. It's very, like, where did that come from? Like, how did you decide that in one grid, you started out with pay grade 4 at 11, and it was, you know, it wasn't connected to 3, and then you decided that you were going to multiply it by the cost of living to get to your next grid. It's really interesting to me.
It was an attempt to stave off the anticipated hike in minimum wage. It's just when we threw the dart that we didn't throw it in the right place.
Wait till minimum wage is
So
$15.
minimum wage went up. I rest my case.
Well, I mean,
It was a little low.
I mean, you have 1 through 3 divided by, or increased by 5%.
4 through 20.
And 4 through 20 increased by 5%. I mean, and you decided to use this. So,
but originally, the minimum wage was way lower.
It was like $9 or something. And we
Right.
expected, I think the guess was,
So the 5% thing from
Yeah, the
from
guess
3 to
was-
4 wasn't anywhere
the
close.
guess was it's gonna go up like $1, $1.50 or something like that at the time because it was being discussed, but it wasn't confirmed in the legislature. So like I said, we threw a dart, and when the legislature made up their mind, it was higher than we had guessed that it would be. Because the attempt was to break it, was to try to stop this from happening. Or at least prolong it.
I mean, the good news is regardless of what the grid says and how illogical it looks, there's zero inconsistency in the actual money that the town disperses to its employees.
There's what?
There's zero inconsistency
Oh, zero inconsistency.
with the money the town disperses to its employees because 3 and 4 aren't populated with town employees.
Right.
So 1 and 2 are the only 2 grades that are populated currently.
No, one is not.
One isn't either.
So 2 is the only grade that's
That's the
populated
minimum wage,
currently.
essentially.
And 5 is the next grade
Right.
that's populated at 1164. So we haven't reached the rubber hitting the road
Right.
with philosophy of pay and actual earnings. But we can see really easily that it's coming in the next couple of years.
Well, it's coming this year because budgeting is going to, Mary asked the question because she's trying to budget for FY19. And
It still won't hit 1164. Will it?
3 is going to be higher than 4 as of January
But you
1st.
But no
already
one's in
have,
for.
you have, this is
That's why
January.
there's no
Oh,
issue.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
This year, there's no real issue.
Right.
There's just an inconsistency in the grid, but nothing exists. No, I think this is consistent with grid policy, but if someone were to get hired at grade 3, we would have an issue that we'd have to address that.
you have never defined grade 4. You have never defined how you are putting a number in there.
Grade 4 is 5% less than grade 5. We started at the top, grade 20, and we reduced 5% every grade to 4. Then there was a division.
We actually started with lower left-hand corner at $9 and went up 5 for each grade.
Well, no, we split off the minimum, the bottom 3.
No, it says 4 through 20
Yeah.
are decoupled and separated by 5%.
So why don't we eliminate, to say 4 not used, and then there's no inconsistency in the near term.
I mean, we could, yeah, I mean, we could even, I don't even think we need to do anything. The grid could just look this way. If it doesn't change, the
What if the
checks that
library
are
service
cut.
assistants get regraded?
Yeah, I was
gonna
gonna
They
say,
become a
what
3
happens
or a
when the
4.
new job descriptions come out?
That would be an issue.
So that's gonna
I don't think we're on the list.
But, you know, the minimum wage might go up by $3 before that happens, you know?
So there's a very real possibility we could have a beach attendant making more than your library loan coordinator pretty soon then.
I disagree. I think at the time when that reality presents itself, the board would have to address this issue. Until that time, I don't see a need to address it. And it doesn't look like it's gonna happen in fiscal year 19.
A third-year beach attendant could make more than a first-year something else.
Yeah.
But that's going up steps. That happens with experience.
And
So
we
you're-
probably are going to have a third-year beach attendant, so
Well,
it's
that's
not
okay.
like we're
It goes in steps,
pulling
not
it.
grades.
Right, that's not affecting
So
this
you're gonna have-
relationship between
You're gonna have
grades.
grade 3 at 1157, and you're gonna not care about grade 4, and grade 5 is gonna be only 1164.
Correct.
So if I was grade 5 and I saw grade 3 was only a few pennies below me, I would be asking like, what the heck is with that?
We'll have to figure that out between.
Well, there's no one in grade 3, so no one's getting paid that.
Honest to God.
It doesn't matter, it's in the paper, people will see it, employees will see it.
It's just so.
So really, we could do nothing, and we're good for the next budgeting cycle, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could do nothing if, it
I was
seems,
thinking of eliminating pay grade 3. Just, that's the space, that's the, so it's unused. So you have pay grade 3, just put unused, take out those numbers, and then you have the minimum wage, pay grade 1 and 2, and then the,
I think that's an aesthetically attractive solution. It
That's
just creates a potential issue down the road if someone gets if a position gets graded at that,
Yeah.
between 126 and 150, now there's a gap.
okay,
So, we could do that and just reallocate the numbers, but I just think it's more work than we need at this point.
so do nothing now.
I think this year, we don't have to do anything, but, you know, it should be on notice that there's a foundational issue that's creeping up with minimum wage, like you said.
It'll be less than a 1% difference. It's actually like a 0.06
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something like that
yeah.
between your grade 2 beach attendant and your grade 4 that is non-existent, which starts that 5% increase. So there'll be less than a 1%.
Well, there's actually an infinity percent since no one's getting paid that amount. So it's 0. The actual earnings in grade 3 that the town cuts a check for is $0. So the person in grade 5, the interlibrary loan coordinator, is making infinitely more money than that.
Step 4 is what starts the 5% for everybody else, the 5% increase into every position. Step 4 is
From-
what starts that. Step 4 is where you then start the 5% to step 5 to the 5%
And there's
to
no
step 6.
one in step 4.
But I was just commenting, that's where it starts in
we
your
understand that.
policy.
Right. If someone was hired at step 4, this would be something we'd need to address, for sure.
Yes, Mary?
So I think that if you just made this a universal grid, like every grade was 5% difference without that nonsense in the middle, I think the library would be very happy.
Everybody would be.
I think
As
that
Fritz
would,
said
I think
earlier.
that would cure a lot of, I think that would cure it all.
And then everybody would all have to grade 20.
And you wouldn't even have to sit through regrading any positions.
But we don't get paid much.
Yeah, we could, where do we stick ourselves
Just,
on here?
you
I
know.
want to go up towards the top.
Okay, we agree to do nothing? Let's save it for when we have a problem. Mary will tell us when we have a problem.
A real problem.
Okay. Replacement of valve wastewater pump station.
Fritz, you want to talk to this?
Yeah, we have one really high price, one reasonable price, and not much luck finding anybody else that wants to do this work.
I didn't see any labor with the Ferguson Water Works. It's just 2 pumps.
Right.
How come there's no-
They're providing the pumps and Steve Williams is providing the labor.
So is that a separate quote?
Yeah, it was a verbal.
Oh, so that's not on here then?
It's in an email on,
So that has to be added then?
Yeah, it was like 40, it was like,
Steve, his labor would be 1 day between $1,000 and $1,500?
yeah.
It's an email to you, Fritz, dated August 3rd. It's on our attachment. So,
And that goes to the Ferguson Waterworks quote.
so you add those two together, the
that's
28.
Steve's labor, and then he pays Ferguson for the price. So you would add the labor to the Ferguson price of 28.44.
So it's
you're
about
looking at,
$4,500.
yeah, and the other one was about
10,000.
10,000. And what that is that's check valves that are, stop the sewage from running back into the tank, which is something that normally fails every so often. And we've fixed, what it does is if they're not corrected, is the pumps can ultimately run continuously, and it costs a whole lot more to replace the pumps.
So are you recommending then that with
I would
that,
recommend that we have Steve do this as soon as possible, because this has been going on. We had a temporary fix, what, May or June when we noticed it?
you want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve, what do we want to call it, the replacement of the wastewater pump station check valves and check valves.
Want to put a price on them?
Let's do the math.
It's right here. 2844.52,
Plus 1,500.
and then the 1,500.
43, 44,
Let's say not to exceed $4,500.
Yep, sounds good.
Second?
Any discussion on that?
You didn't say town green. Do you need that in your motion?
Now we've
You
only
know
got
what
them
it
in one spot, so.
Okay, very
We
good.
could call it town green, call it anywhere you want.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you, Fritz.
You're quick.
I've had to replace those before, personally.
Retro, oh, the repro, this is the cost of the town reports.
Ugly.
Right. So Repro is offered to hold last year's price. We went out for bids, actually the past several years. Last year's quotes, Repro was the lowest by almost 2,000.
Here it is. Okay.
5,025 versus
No, it's jet service.
versus 4180.
Oh, you're right, sorry, 1,000. 900.
So-
Yeah, correct.
So the question is, do you want to go out for bids, or you want to take repo based on their good service and last year's quote?
I mean, I don't know what the price of paper is doing or anything else, if anyone knows whether that's a good deal or not.
Can't think of anything that's going down.
Christine?
Did any of those quotes have postage in them?
Nope,
Or is postage additional to that?
postage is additional.
And how much is postage?
A lot.
It's a lot.
Couple $1,000 or something. It's a lot of
Yeah,
money.
it's,
And how many,
depends upon the weight of the book. If it's more than a
we
pound.
struggle with this for the.
Make it smaller.
Yeah, make it right.
Well, some towns do it on thinner cardstock, like newspaper cardstock, which would certainly make it lighter. But Shaw's always done it on kind of a nice, it's a nice thing, and some people in town have.
But how many
Make it a
do we
transparency so
do
it
not-
disappears.
How many are stored? Remember the boxes?
Yeah,
like-
we don't, the past year, we targeted a better number. The previous year, we had several extra boxes. So I don't have the exact number, but it was based on, basically, in order to do the route mailing by the post office, you have to have a certain minimum number, and they specify based on their count.
They specify all the box holders and all the mailbox addresses.
Yeah.
And you have to mail it to every one of them.
Yep.
It's $900 to mail a single card.
To every mailable address.
I know that. It's not a mail a book. It's gotta be more.
So what's your pleasure, guys? Want to go with this one?
Figure out a different way to get the town books into people's hands besides mailing them.
This is just printing, yeah.
No, I know, right,
Right, and I think like Matt said, the only way you're gonna reduce that is by cheaper paper. Make it lighter.
I mean, I've looked at, if you look at the cost compared to the investment of providing a financial report for what's close to $1 billion worth of real estate, it's a very small number. I mean, it's a relatively efficient way of producing a financial report for an investment this size, but it's still a big
I
number.
mean, what this represents, I
Yeah,
mean,
which is the town's.
CPA's audit and
Yeah,
the
the value
taxpayers.
of everyone's properties and getting a financial report about where all that money is being spent. It's it is inexpensive per person, but it's just a big number.
About 3,500 people in town, $2 a person.
I do.
183.
What's this quote for? Does it have a max number of pages?
180.
180. So if we keep it within 180, we don't pay that additional $2 per page that they say per
There
book.
was, well, that, I mean, they put that in there as a, you know, if it's, right, if it was,
Right, each 2+ pages is $31.50.
yep.
So the number you have up on the screen, 4325, is a little different from what you have on this handout.
Yeah, that was based on the actual number of pages, which differed.
Oh, last year.
Right.
I got you. So this is based on 180, is that what you just said? then?
Right.
Okay.
The 4180 is 180.
4325.
So what are we voting on?
This is their quote, 4325.
Oh. 4325 for 182 pages?
180 pages and 1,665 copies.
Okay.
Which, you know, I suppose that may be a factor because there might be more, you know, there may be a few more residents this year than there were last year. Now that I think about it.
Is that new homes?
There are a couple new homes, yeah. So that would be an additional, I mean, that would be an additional $265 a copy. But, so that's I mean, the quote is $43.25, and then if there is more, we would pay $265 a copy.
And for how many books is that?
1,665.
So we have three numbers we'd be voting on. The 4325, which is 180 pages, for 1,665 books. And it's an estimate, I mean,
Right.
you might want to call it $4,500 and
Do you know what we budgeted? Or did that include the mailing?
Um,
That probably included the mailing.
For those of you,
what's it under, town clerk?
it's under elections.
Elections?
We budgeted 7,000,
Yeah, we budgeted 7,000.
but that includes postage.
Right, because the postage was like 2,000 change or something like that. It was pretty astronomical.
So 45 plus 2,000, 55, 65, so that's probably,
And then extra copies.
yeah.
Now, is that shipping them from there, or is that having them dropped off
They drop them
here?
in Essex, actually. If they're going to do bulk mailing, they do go through the Essex mailing facility. We don't have to cart it.
Because in the one year we had them here.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking them to Shelburne.
You didn't like that?
It was fine, I didn't mind it.
Your leaf springs, okay?
Yeah, I got extra suspension in my truck.
All right.
Somebody want to say something?
So we get the three numbers, right? So I'll make
Go ahead. yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve printing for the town report for 2017 and 18 to Repro for 1,665 copies and 180 pages for $4,325.
Is that seconded?
Authorize Lane to sign.
Well, that sounds like a good idea.
Second.
Okay.
Do you want to do that for 1 year or 2 years?
We should want to do it for 1 year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, this next one. For Daryl is on vacation. Dina's asking us,
Do you want me to walk through that?
huh?
Do you want me to walk you
Sure.
through it? So his vacation hours accrued through August. Vacation hours in general accrue at the end of the month. So he has some of vacation hours that accrued as of August, and then as of the end of September, he'll accrue 6.67 additional hours. And the question is whether you want to pay that. He is taking vacation this week and next week, part of next week, and if you want to pay that now, fine. If you don't want to pay it, that's fine too.
My suggestion is to leave it to your discretion. In other words, I mean, I'm okay with it. Everybody all right with that? Just leave it to Dean's discretion?
Sounds good to me.
I'm fine as long as it works out at the end.
Yep.
That's what I was just gonna state, is that if for some reason Daryl was to ever get done on his last paycheck, if he was ever in the negative, we would take that money back. Because on his last paycheck, if he's in the positive for vacation time, we pay him for
Yep.
the vacation time. So if he happens to be in the negative by a day or two, we would take that back. He wouldn't be able to just walk out of here with a final paycheck still owing us hours. So it would wash if something were to happen and he were to
Agreed.
quit.
If the 6.67 hours aren't accrued because of for some reason, then as long as they're covered by future hours, that's fine. I think I agree as long as Dean can handle that.
Okay, next item. VLCT has an annual meeting. It's in Killington this year. Each town is entitled to send a representative. I've gone several years. You vote on policies. The proposed policies are in the packet. That's a long way to go. There's 253 towns. I mean, if somebody wants to go, fine. I don't think I want to spend my day traveling to Killington and back.
Me neither.
So we'll just pass on it. That's
Not
somewhat
me.
interesting, but it's a long way to go. It's easier when it's in Essex and the fairgrounds there. So no action taken there, okay? Next thing we have are minutes. They were handed out tonight. I guess they missed the packet. This is the HOPS meeting. This is really a discussion that we had no action, just trying to be a good community forward here and allow the parties to talk under a organized format. So these are the minutes from that. I looked at them quickly. We're not finding the town anything if we had made a mistake in these.
They missed the packet because that was my fault, not Kath's.
Okay.
She got them out.
So is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes minutes of August 28th may be amended.
Okay.
Second.
We're gonna reschedule, Linda Radmer.
Yeah, I've sent her an email asking if, dates, yep, and if she has materials.
Okay, that was it.
Anybody else have anything? Yes.
You're not going to be here in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Correct? Can
Oh,
you
that's-
guys vote to have Matt be the single signer? Last week, we did not see anyone other than Lane to sign any warrants. This week happens to be a payroll week, which means 2 weeks from now will be a payroll week. So if we can have Matt as the vice chair be voted to be the sole signer I need to release payroll, that would be great.
Can I do that? Someone else make the motion?
Kind of sketchy.
You've got a motion out on the floor already, you really should finish that.
Yeah, let's finish this motion. That's a good point. Anything more on the minutes?
No.
All in favor of the minutes as motion?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Okay, so I'm not going to be here to sign payroll. In case we only have a single signature, it should be you, Matt.
So make a motion for Matt to be the single signer on the payroll on on
28th.
the September 28th.
Thursday?
Monday.
It's a
25th?
Monday. 28th should be a Monday. Oh, wait a second, I'm on the wrong date.
25th.
25th, September 25th.
Oh,
I'm
September
sorry.
25th. You told me the wrong information.
That motion was made, was it seconded?
I'll second the
Any
wrong
comments?
information.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. What time will it be ready?
It's typically ready by noon.
Okay, so I'll come after work, 3:30.
Really no later than that. And I
Great.
just need it by sometime Tuesday, midday, so that I can release payroll.
3:30 Monday.
Perfect. I'm gonna hold you to it.
Any other topics to be brought aboard the select board?
There's warrants and highway access permits to sign.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Very cool.